Yeah, and we are live, and you are not. Just we are live here. So this is Pepper. I'm Salt. I'm Gharios. We are the two shakers. Here's, as promised, our thinker. That is our mascot. And today, first and foremost, I would like to have your background. Pepper, tell us everything about you.
Oh man, we don't have enough podcasts to tell you everything about me.
Okay.
Let's start with I'm from the East Coast. I was born in Kentucky, but I'm adopted. My biological mom was 16 when I was born, so I'm the result of a one-night stand. She was getting back at her ex-boyfriend, and thus I was originated. And so I was adopted by two parents who one of the biggest reasons my biological mom chose my adoptive parents was because my adoptive mom was a clown, and so she wanted me to have some artistic upbringing. And so I was adopted by them as an infant. They were in the waiting room, ready for me to come, and then they adopted three other kids from different families, all
Wow.
open adoptions. So we kept in touch with our biological relatives, and so we'd go visit them like aunts or uncles.
God bless.
Yeah, and then I was in Virginia for 3 years, and then I was in Vermont until I was 11. And my adoptive parents got divorced at that point, so I moved with adoptive mom to Indiana. Dad moved down to North Carolina, so I was between them a lot. And then, then my 18, I moved to North Carolina with my dad. My adoptive mom got remarried to a guy who had 4 kids already, 2 of whom were adopted. We've got 4 step siblings, 3 adopted siblings, and then my bio parents had kids after I was born when they were older. So I have 4.
How many siblings
4 half
total?
siblings. 11.
Wow.
I'm the oldest, tallest, best looking, smartest. Yeah, and then I was in North Carolina through college, and then moved to Seattle, and then I've been in California the last 5 years.
Okay, so you had 11
Siblings.
siblings.
Yeah, but none from the same 2 parents.
Okay, but still, there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And okay, since the subject that we are gonna address this show, I would like you to tell me about your religious background.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up. My parents would both say they're Christians. My dad's pretty fundamentalist. Not a Calvinist, but maybe Southern Baptist is close to what he is. When my parents got divorced, my mom became very much more charismatic. And when I was about 17, I started reading scripture regularly, 6 chapters a day. Got through the whole thing in 8 months, and was like, kind of changed my beliefs to have something of my own beliefs that differ from both my parents in various ways, because I started to understand things myself through what I saw in scripture. So yeah, that's kind of formulated my views. Titles, right? How do you want to title yourself?
Oh God,
But
a dreamer. That's my title.
right. Others would probably label me definitely would label me a Calvinist. Might be labeled a Reformed Baptist, although I disagree with some Reformed views. So yeah.
Okay, so for the people that don't know, I was born and raised in Brazil in exile. My father's family is from the Middle East. Is from today's Syria and Lebanon. Because we are a Christian family, one of the most traditional Christian Arab families in history. I was born and raised in Brazil. It's the largest Lebanese colony outside Lebanon. And a lot of people don't know, but you have more Lebanese in Brazil than in Lebanon.
Wow.
Twice more, at least.
Oh.
And we just had 5, 6 years ago, we had a Lebanese president in Brazil. So, everyone, and you go to Lebanon, it's so funny because when I said, you were born in Brazil, everyone has an uncle or a cousin that lives in Brazil too. And so it's very common there. Well, from my father's side, my grandfather was a Maronite Catholic, and my grandma was from an Greek Orthodox tradition. But there is very common. You have intermarriage between the Christian traditions, and then from my mother's side, I am Roman Catholic for the Latin Rite because I had an Italian grandma and a British French uh, grandfather, and I was raised with my nonna, which is my Italian grandmother,
Uh-huh.
and she forced me like to be like as Italian as possible. So I was raised by the Franciscans in a school in Brazil. I did time there in the school
Uh-huh.
because I consider that the same as prison. And
You can't leave, yeah.
and then when I was 11, I rebelled myself and I started to study religion, philosophy, and everything. And I studied very deeply the Christian and the Bible and all of that from a more secular perspective. And I also study since 1989 Tibetan Buddhism. And when the Dalai Lama received the Nobel Peace Prize, I started to get interested. And then when I uh, went to work and learn martial arts from Steven Seagal, I was lucky to get in touch with many Buddhist masters. And my main master was a Tibetan master called Chagdu Tuku Rinpoche that lived in southern Brazil. He was one of the last guys that escaped the the Chinese invasion in '59. And but so now you might be asking, how come you are Buddhist and you are Christian? It's like a salad of religions. But no, actually, I don't see Buddhism as a religion. I see Buddhism as a training of the mind, and we're going to go into that later. Well, my parents also divorced. I'm the only son from my father and my mother. My mother, they both got married again, but my mother had half two sons, and I have two half brothers from my mother's side only. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm also a grandmaster of martial arts. I have over 45 years of practice of martial arts. I'm a black belt more time than you were alive. I got my black belt in '92.
Yeah, I was in 91.
Oh, okay. So you were one. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm. You forgot to say you are an actor,
Oh, yeah.
director, writer,
Producer, yeah, a little bit of
producer.
everything.
Yeah,
Do wedding photography.
we had that in common too. I'm also an
Mhm.
amateur photographer, but painter and everything. Okay, so last show you said something. That's actually something we disagree. So
Right.
we thought it'd be a good idea to bring that up in this show, and that's why I wanted this introduction. So it'll be easy for you to understand why he has the positions he had and why I have the positions I have. So I made a statement last show that I believe that human nature is good. So you disagree. So please.
Yeah, well, I believe people are inherently evil. I believe people are, of their nature, I believe Adam and Eve sinned and disobeyed God. Because Adam and Eve sinned, it's the equivalent to a virus. And now, genetically, all people are descendant from them and have that evil nature within them, the desire to do evil, and their nature through Adam and Eve has become entirely anti-God in everything they do, and it's only through redemption, through being saved from that nature,
Mhm.
that you can do any good. But I think of our own volition, we are only wired to do evil. And even what we might deem as good motivation for doing something, or a positive thing that can help society, I believe at its root, can't be God glorifying or come from goodness inside of you. I think goodness is only external to man, that being in God, or in Christ alone, and through Christ dying on the cross and then saving us, and us being filled with His Spirit. That's the only way we can do anything that's not of ourselves, that is good, not of ourselves, because it's not us who's doing it. I believe our own nature does not allow us to. So you talk about free will. I guess I do believe we have free will. The free will to do evil, because that's all we would do with our free will.
Okay. So you showed the theological background
Yeah.
of your theory. Now, could you give me some examples
Of what do you mean, like a?
of our evil nature? How can you
Yeah, like,
identify the
I mean, just look at an infant. You know, an infant.
Mhm.
What all they do is scream and cry, wanting. You know, it's all self motivated, and some might deem that survival. But you know, as you grow and learn, you know, social norms, we recognize that that's not a way to behave or function properly in a society, to just scream when you want something. But at our root, I think that's still what most people do. It just becomes more sophisticated as we get older. We still want and desire and crave for ourselves, not considering those around us. And I think you can see that in an infant, that at the earliest age, it's all self-oriented. And the only way you can become not self-oriented is through salvation. So, I mean, you can look at infants, you can look at people just functioning in society. And you can see in society, I think I mean, obviously there's a lot of suffering and a lot of bad things in society. I think most people would agree that's because there's some evil in man, but I think everyone can look at themselves, and if they're honest with themselves, can identify times and moments in their lives where they had desires to do things that they knew were not right, and they acted upon those. And those desires come from something internal. Sometimes they're coerced by external things. You have something outside that lures you towards it. But I think oftentimes we have pretty creative ideas in and of ourselves, of what things we desire to do that we know, I think if we're honest, some of those are not right. Some of those are not good. And that's coming from inside us. It's not coming from outside us all the time.
Okay. Well, my argument is that I believe our essence is good, and I will explain why. What's the reason why we commit evil things, in my opinion, of course. And I respect your position.
For sure. Same.
But the example for you, if you didn't watch the last show, the example I was offering was the fact that during the Second World War, when the Nazis start to executing the Jews, they would do that by what's called in French coup de grâce, which is a shooting in the back of the head. And they were executing a lot of Jews, and the time was passing, and the soldiers that were doing that, they start to have psychological problems. They start to develop psychological problems. Then the high command, knowing that that was happening all over their concentration camps and in all different areas of their operations, they decided to bring the most bloodthirsty soldiers from the front, the ones that had pleasure in killing, and employing those soldiers to kill the Jews. But some time passed, and they also started to develop psychological problems. So we talk about Nazism, which is the best, I think, most recent example of evil ever. So even the Nazis, they start feeling bad when they were killing someone that was deep inside, they knew that what they were doing was not right. That's the conclusion of this study. And then, of course, they started using the gas chambers and so on.
Well, I'd agree with you that people do know
Yeah.
things are not right.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a knowledge of not right.
Yeah,
even
yeah. No, but I'll get there. So that was the example I gave to substantiate the fact that I believe we are good inside. Well, first we have to understand that there are unfortunately a growing part of our society that is that's first suffers from different kinds of mental illnesses, right? And unfortunately, more and more we have more people with narcissistic tendencies. And when you are narcissistic, you don't have empathy, you don't have compassion. So you don't understand that there's another person suffering. You only understand about yourself. Of course, that's a very small, uh, unfortunately growing, as I said, share of our population. You have people that are completely crazy, psychopaths, and people that do things that are evil for us. Um, and also, we have to understand that, unfortunately, with progress, we have some bad things that come with it. For example, if someone kills another person in China, not China, let's use another example, because China, we never know if we're going to get information on. Or let's say in Italy, if someone has a very terrible assassination and killed someone, in Italy, we immediately going to know. And, our mind, I'll give you an example. If I told you that before you arrive here, there was an accident here on Pico, would you believe me?
Yeah.
Okay. What if I told you I found a suitcase full of money? Would you believe it?
Probably.
But it's harder to believe than the accident.
Yeah.
Because we have this tendency of believing in everything that is bad and in fixating in everything that is bad. You can see that, for example, you watching us right now, you might receive like 10 compliments a day. But if you get one critic, you're going to stick to that critic. So we have this tendency of attaching ourselves to the negative part because our brain only thrives through problem solution. This is scientific. So we fixate in the bad things. So when you think, oh, how is life going? And you say, oh, for example, I had to drive like I don't know how many hours.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm dealing like with some idiots, but we have food, we have health.
Yep.
We live better today than rulers, than kings of 200, 300 years ago, or in more, like thousands of years ago. We live a lot better. We have better condition. We eat better. We have better health treatment, and so. But we have the tendency of fixating in the bad things. Okay. Moving on. We have, even though we don't want to recognize much, we have an animal side. And our animal side is being tamed every day by our conscious mind. It's being tamed. For example, when you are with your girlfriend, okay, and then there is a nice hot woman passing by, if you don't hold on, you're gonna do like you're gonna look.
Yeah.
And then probably your girl is going to, why you are looking to him? And because they don't understand that if you could control that, you would.
Yeah.
But this is unconscious. You have to really be strong to control yourself to do it, because that's our unconscious mind. Our unconscious mind moves according to our primate desires. So survival, continuation of the species, meaning sex. Um, so we have these impulses that we have to fight and we have to work on. So going to the Eastern religion, Eastern Buddhism believes that we have what's called poisons of the mind, like fear, rage, ignorance. Okay, so because of these obscurations, is is the reason why we do evil. For example, the masochist. The masochist is ignorant because he thinks that by having pain, he's going to be happy. The same with I give an example. Um, uh, it's so funny because I was accused of being a terrorist. I'm trying to save the Christians in the Middle East from the terrorists, and I'm the terrorist. But anyway, it's very funny how social media works. But anyways, speaking about terrorists, what they do is evil, is monstrous, is absolutely unthinkable. But nobody wakes up in the morning and think, you know what, I'm going to blow up myself. And they don't think that what they are doing is bad. In their minds, they think they are saving, they are freedom fighters, right? So, something that we perceive, I perceive as evil, you perceive as evil, in his mind, he's being a hero. So, we have to discount all these small things. Um, we have a great difficulty that is, in my opinion, is what Jesus said, love thy neighbor. We had this conversation over and over, which is having compassion for the other person. So first we have to understand the reason why people do what they do. I'm not saying it's justifiable, and I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying anything. What I'm saying is the first step is to understand why the person is doing that. Because at the moment that we understand, we are one step further to being able to forgive, to being able to make this person maybe understand that what he or she is doing is not okay. Because in their ignorance, they think it is. So um, I believe that if we cultivate compassion, and I believe we are inherently good, because if we were predominantly bad, uh, life would be impossible to live. I agree it's hard. World is violent. I agree could be a lot better, could be a lot safer depending on the area you live. But imagine if half of the population of the world were composed by killers, thieves. We will live chaos. We will live like crazy. So I do believe that there's a very small percentage of people. Of course, we all have our sins. I'm a sinner. You're a sinner. We're all sinners. I'm no example for anyone. Okay. We all have our small evil things we do, sometimes without thinking, or sometimes by being egotistical, selfish. We all have that. However, we always try to do good. It's when we do evil is because, is a like a oopsie. How is that we call oopsie daisy? You know, we are always constantly trying to do good, trying to be fair, trying to, we always try. And then agree is we have a fight because we have the our primal. We have. I have very little patience for stupid people, for example. And sometimes I might be uh, hard with them. And but we have to understand that their understanding of things is very limited. So I have to understand that. Otherwise, I cannot live in society because the great majority of people is stupid. You agree with me with that, right? And very stupid. You know that. I don't remember where I saw the statistic, but there are 60% of people that are graduating from universities and colleges. They are what's called functionally illiterate.
Really? Wow.
You know what
Doesn't
functionally
surprise me.
illiterate
Yeah,
is?
yeah, yeah.
So, if you don't know, functionally illiterate means you can read and write, but you cannot interpret the text. So,
Not a critical thinker.
yeah, not a critical thinker. So, that's serious stuff.
Yeah.
And you are giving like degrees for these people,
Yeah.
and they are being part of our working environment. They are being bosses sometimes because depending on the degree you have, you might have like a nice position in a company or something, and you cannot even interpret the text. It's that's very serious. But okay, so let me focus on the thing. So that's why I believe we are good. Okay.
Well, yeah. There's a lot there to respond to. I do believe we have the animalistic side. I believe that is the side inside us that isn't. I think that is. I'd say that is the sin side. That proves my point. That is the sin side inside of us wanting those impulses, those desires. I mean, when someone cuts you off on the road and your impulse is to get out and kill the guy, like that's that comes from inside, obviously. And I think I believe God has a general grace on the world, so He doesn't allow people to go to the extent to which they would if He just completely let His hands off of all mankind and let them do whatever they would naturally do. I think God is withholding people from doing the full extent of what they would do, were He not holding them back from that. Even people who aren't saved, I believe because obviously everyone's not running around as a pedophile, and a murderer. That's not everyone. And I think that's God's general grace, because we've seen societies in the past where I believe God has taken His hands off and they become incredibly depraved, violent, animalistic societies that just all of that inner primal comes out. And I think those are societies God has taken away a great amount of His general grace on. So He has a general grace keeping people from themselves. And then specifically, but I feel like even that, when God keeps people from themselves, like the motivation obviously there are social constructs in place that, like societal norms that people have put in place to try to help us function in a good society, and people have a general desire to have some amount of peace and are working to have that peace, although albeit mostly void of God. People are trying to have peace, which I believe is impossible. However, I do believe we were still created by God in the image of God. So even though there's this virus of sin that causes our innate nature to be abhorrent of God and internally evil, I believe we still have that design from God originally that causes us to desire good, to desire to know the difference between right and wrong. That's still in our framework, our DNA, even though we have this virus that causes our nature to now be against and opposed to God.
I like very much your concept of the evil being a virus. I think that's is a very interesting point. And so, in your opinion, you think that if we are left to our luck,
Our own devices.
for our own devices, let's call it like that,
Yeah.
do you think we would be completely doomed?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think man, and I think we can look back throughout societies and see that happens. Societies rise and fall because ultimately there's no way that it functions perfectly. Always people are going to, end up, societies always become more and more corrupted until they collapse. And they start off great with great idealism, and then they grow and grow and grow and get more and more and more corrupt, and people find ways to pollute the system, and then it collapses, and then it starts again. You've got the cycle of regimes.
I absolutely agree. We talked about that in the first show about Plato and we have this terrible nature that is the same from the times of Plato 25 centuries ago. However, I have a difficulty um, accepting that, because to destroy something is that old saying that a tree that is cut makes more noise than a whole forest growing. So I think it's a lot easier to destroy something, and you need a lot less people than to build something good. And I
Yeah.
strongly believe that the fact that we have a society that is corrupt and is in decadence, let's say, it's not is because of the greed of a few, the ones that detain the power. I don't think it's necessarily a human corruption is a human nature, because we always, especially if we live in a corrupt, you're always going to have someone that is corrupt. That's I was raised in Brazil, one of the most corrupt countries in the world. But this is the point. Corruption, you can never get rid of corruption because it's something is a human flaw. However, what happens in Brazil and what happens unfortunately in Lebanon right now, excuse me, is that you have an endemic corruption. Meaning, even if you want to do things in the right way, you can't. You have to go into the system. If you want to have you open your company, get your license, you need, in Brazil, for example, everything you have to give 5% or a tip or something to someone or a gift, pay a beer, a little coffee. We have different words for bribe there. So, but that's not everyone. But of course, when you have a whole system, the thought, because we create excuses to do wrong things. We
Yeah,
all do
yeah.
that, right? Oh, I deserve this. He deserved that. But the excuse people have to do corrupt actions is, oh, if I don't steal, someone else will. So I better guarantee my family, then someone will steal that anyways. And just to close this thought about corruption, I always say there's three kinds of corruption. Okay, one kind of corruption, it doesn't harm the taxpayer, because it's something like that. I have 50 million to build a school. Um, you are my friend. Instead of getting the best bid, I give it to you. You give me 20%, but you actually build a school and with the good materials. It's the same school that people will get if I had the best price. However, instead of giving to someone else, I gave to you and you paid me a commission. Okay, this is corrupt. This is not right at all, but that doesn't harm the taxpayer. Second kind of corruption: 50 million to build a school. I give it to you, the contract, but you build a school with the worst possible material. So the school that's supposed to last for 25 years is going to last for 5. And then you are harming the taxpayer, because the taxpayer is not getting what he and she paid for. So, and that's a third kind of corruption, which is very common in Brazil, which is we have 50 million to build a school. I give you 25, I keep 25, and we never build a school. So again, the first one is not right, but we have a lot of politicians. Maybe we develop this kind of resistance for corruption. So we always say, "Oh, that politician, he steals, but at least he does something." So we know he's corrupt, but at least he does stuff for the people. So we got to that point now, which is sad. Um, for example, we now I was commenting when we had this communist guy, a president in Brazil that is now that there now. We had him for 8 years, and then he elected her. She was his minister of chief of staff, something like that. And then he put her because he couldn't get a third consecutive term. So he elected her. So Brazil had 13 years of people talking with grammar, the heads of state talking with all kinds of grammar mistakes. They couldn't finish a sentence without making a mistake. Or, I swear to God, I was born and raised in Brazil. I'm fluent in Portuguese. And this woman, I could not understand what she was trying to say. Because she was like, it's even funny when you see what she says. Like, she says one time, "Oh, we have to understand and we have to celebrate the Homo sapiens and also the women sapiens." She's trying to be inclusive.
Wow.
And she said a lot of things like, "Oh, unfortunately, we cannot store winds because of eolic energy. We cannot store winds. The wind." She was talking about how you can store energy. So you have the windmills for energy, but you cannot store it anywhere.
She was thinking you would actually put the wind in a house or something.
Somewhere to keep the unfortunately.
Wow.
No, she said, unfortunately we can't. But
That's not how. That's not how that works.
And again, guys, they are left, but you have, again, I have no dog in this fight. I always joke, I hate everyone equally. I don't care your ideology, your ethnicity. Of course, I'm joking. I don't have, but I mean, I hate equally. The people I hate left, right. I think I always say I'm too old to believe in politicians. So we had here Trump saying that we supposed to inject the bleach. You have terrible things said by people. Stupidity is the most democratic thing. God shared stupidity equally. Men, women, nations, ideologies, religions. Stupidity is free for everyone. But I'm sorry, I digress. Please.
Let me contrast,
Yes.
socialism with capitalism. Socialism is a economic, system that functions only when everyone in the society is altruistic on paper, right? They have to be altruistic. It trusts in man being altruistic in order for it to work. Socialistic structure.
And not having individuality.
And not heavy individuality, yeah. Whereas capitalism rests upon the fact that man is naturally going to be greedy. They're naturally going to, it's a system that is designed around people being self-interested and greedy, and it's a machine that works when you do that, when you do what's in your best interest and get as much money as possible, it helps me out, and it helps him out, and her out, it helps everyone out when you're self-interested. So it's a system that works way better in history, we see, than socialism, but it's also a system that is fundamentally opposed in its basis for how it functions. One trusts in man's inherent goodness, and one trusts in man's inherent corruption. It wouldn't work if people were altruistic. Capitalism wouldn't work.
Allow me to interrupt you a little bit, but uh, don't you think that capitalism, the true capitalism, okay, now I know we're living the fuel for capitalism today is greed, pure and simple. But don't you think that the original idea of capitalism was based on ambition,
Yeah.
not greed?
Well, yeah.
Because ambition is good, greed is bad.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That I mean, where's the line between those? Yeah.
That's the point. But
Yeah.
I mean, the line is,
Yeah, it was designed on people being ambitious, like ambitious for themselves. Yeah, and that's what drives the system. Yeah, and it can quickly turn and did into greed. Uh,
yeah. Well, as I said last show, go back and watch last show if you didn't. We were all over the place, but that was because we wanted to, just to throw ideas away so you can pick something. And now we're going to go deeper into the things. But what I really believe is that the reason why socialism doesn't work is not just because of altruism. Socialism doesn't, because we see, for example, especially in Asia, like Japan, even China, they are countries that they are more collectivist countries.
sure.
So they understand because they are back to the cave times. They are more based on agriculture. In agriculture, you need to have a community to prepare the soil and then to prepare the seeds and then the harvest, and then everyone share the food and eat equally. Here in the West, Europe and in the Americas, we are more hunters. So the hunter goes hunt something, kills that animal, his family eats, and then in the end you have even to, if you kill a big animal, you have to throw away the meat because back then there was obviously no refrigeration. So is based on let's call selfishness. Okay, so for countries in Asia, is easier to understand this idea of collectivism and something like that. But the reason why socialism doesn't work is because, in my opinion, we cannot assign something to someone that is each person. We all know that each person is different. So even twins, identical twins, are different. So you cannot decide someone's life. You cannot put the person on a shelf or label a person that and expect the person to accept that. I mean, the great majority will, but not because they like it, but because they have to. And but you cannot sustain that system unless you have a police state, totalitarian state. Which means that it's never going to work, because if you leave to people's will, it's not going to work. But let's go back to our main idea. So, you think that the only way for us to actually overcome this virus, which is our evil nature, is through Christianity?
Through being saved. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd have to think through whether I believe those could be interchanged.
Yeah, no, because
the word Christianity and being saved from your virus would be synonymous.
Yeah, because we are getting to the end of the show, and
Dun, dun, dun.
we
haven't used any effects today.
Oh. Let's use all of them. Okay, now use them all. Anyways, what's your opinion? Tell us. Do you think that we are evil? Our nature is evil, and we have certain moments of goodness, or you think we are good and we have certain oopsie daisies of evil? You tell us. But the next show, not the next immediately the next show. But one of the shows we're going to talk about is about religion, because we had this conversation and I think it's going to be very enlightening to people watching. If only Christianity can save you. Aha. What's your opinion? Send your opinion. What's important? We're both Christian here, but what's the most important? You have to be Christian in every single aspect of the word, or you have to follow Christ's message. That's a homework for you to think back home. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you guys. Join us next time where we're going to dig more into all different types of subjects and be critical thinkers with you. Please comment, subscribe, and continue listening.
Remember, if you like the show, recommend to your friends. If you don't like the show, recommend to your enemies. But don't recommend us no matter what. Okay? Thank you so much and see you on the next.
See you next time, guys.
Bye-bye.